afternoon again, everybody. Welcome back to the United Regional Chambers update. We try and bring on some interesting guests and to keep you abreast of what's going on around the city and around the region. Today we have a repeat guest. My guest today is Catherine Feerick. She's the Economic Development Director for the city of Attleboro, the person who kind of works a little bit behind the scenes, and we got to get her to promote herself a little bit more. Has brought a lot of monies, grants, and a lot of interesting projects to Attleboro. And we're going to talk about just a few of them today, because in our little time slot, we didn't have enough time to explain all that Catherine does. So, Catherine, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jack. Good to be on again.
You've been, with all the coronavirus and all the other stuff, I know that you've been working a little bit remotely, as most of us have, but the work has never stopped. And so I'm going to kind of put you on the spot a little bit here and ask you, let's talk a little bit about some of the projects that you're working on, some of the grants that are out there. You've graciously had us involved in a few of them, especially with the new TDI project. But let's first start talking about small business. Tell us about some of the COVID relief stuff available, and we'll start there.
Sure. COVID has obviously affected a lot of small businesses in and outside of Attleboro. It's pretty much a global problem that everyone in my profession is dealing with. As I like to say, whenever something happens that negatively impacts the economy, like COVID, our profession gets very, very busy very quickly. So we've been working on a couple of endeavors trying to help our businesses to survive and also to plan for the future, because we don't know how much of these consumer and commuter habits are going to stick after the restrictions ease and after people get vaccinated. The programs that we've put into place to help small businesses, we have had a couple of rounds of grant funding available through Mass Development TDI program. And so we have been able to fund 19 businesses at a total amount of $60,000 within our downtown with that funding. We do still have a CDBG fund, which I can connect people if they want to call me. I can give my work number here, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. You can call me. My number, if you have a pen handy, is 774-362-0024. And if you connect with me, I'm happy to talk to you about the CDBG funds that we have available for COVID response. I'm not the one who administers those directly, but I'm happy to tell you about the qualification criteria. It's a maximum of $10,000 per. So those are the direct support programs. We have a couple of plans in place as well, helping us chart a new path forward out of this.
Well, we've made tremendous progress in the short time that we've been dealing with this. Now you've been on board 2 years, a little more than 2 years.
Just a bit more than 2 years, yes.
Okay, and I know that you've had a lot of studies like the downtown mobility study. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. That was another grant project through Mass Development. We worked with Nelson Nygaard to look at how people are moving through downtown Attleboro. What are some of the intersections that are dangerous? For example, one that I called out to the consultants is right here in front of City Hall. Between City Hall and the Art Museum, there's an area where people park on the street, and it's hard to see with pedestrians, bicyclists across it. So we got feedback from our residents. Through Facebook surveys. We also had a number of people who live and work in the downtown directly provide some of their observations and their pressure points. And we came up with a strategy that promotes certain new projects that increase safety, that increase the aesthetic throughout our downtown, that make people feel as though they're going from place to place and there are things to see and things to do. We've already started planning some of those. We submitted recently for a Winter Shared Streets program that is going to, hopefully, if we get funded for that, add lighting, repave, and install seating and temporary event space in the alleyway between the Sanford Street parking garage downtown and our downtown businesses. So the plan itself was a great exercise. We found some really easy, low-hanging fruit type stuff out of that, like shared parking agreements between people who have parking that is full during the day, but not at night? Will they share it with people who have the reverse needs? And then those longer term capital intensive projects like the one that I just discussed that we submitted a grant for behind Sanford Garage. It was a fun project, and we're really looking forward to getting more of those projects implemented.
One thing that, I myself was not familiar with, and I know a lot of the folks out there that may be viewing us are not familiar with, how long does it take you to put together a grant application? They're very complicated. There's an awful lot of information that needs to be, gotten to fill out. But on average, how long does it take you to fill out a grant application?
There is no average in the world of grant writing. There's some that are really, really easy. You just have to write a paragraph, submit, and it's done. Most grants, I would say I have to spend a solid week of just what are the criteria, what is some of the history, since I'm new here in Attleboro, relatively new. I don't necessarily know some of the previous plans and studies that were done 10, 20 years ago that help to support the need for the funding request that I'm making at the moment. So a lot of it is historical analysis. Right now I'm digging through some grants related to a program called the Community Compact, which I personally haven't had much to do with, but it's being requested on yet another grant application. What are some of the programs and projects that have come about under that? So sometimes these grants can take 2 weeks plus. The state just consolidated a lot of economic development grants into a new technological system and a new grant portal, and I've been trying to figure that one out literally all week, and I don't think I'm going to be in a position to submit even expressions of interest in these grants for another week or two.
Yeah, it is very complicated, and as you just mentioned, there's a lot of research that's involved. You've got to look back at some of the records, see things that have been done by this administration, the previous administration, to make sure that you do fall into that criteria. Because one small little glitch, and your whole application and your 2 weeks worth of work goes right out the door.
Right. And you have to build partnerships as well. We've worked with the chamber on a couple of grant applications now, and I'm sure that you'll be a partner of ours into the future. And trying to build those partnerships and trying to design a program that meets the needs and intent of the city plus each one of those partners. Sometimes that involves some negotiation and some fine tuning and some really strategic decisions on what should be included and what should not.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about downtown activation. I know that you're working with a group. Actually, I think we're meeting this week. Although I don't know if the snow is going to keep people away from, taking a peek at that park. But tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've got going downtown.
Sure. The biggest boon to the city when it comes to downtown has been joining Mass Development's Transformative Development Initiative. TDI is the acronym. So if you've heard me say that before in this program, that's what it refers to. It's a mass development program aimed at downtown redevelopment activity within gateway cities. So Attleboro qualified, and we received not only a fellow, George Durante is our regional fellow. We share him with Brockton and also with Barnstable. We also receive access to certain grants that aren't available to every other community. So it's really a wonderful resource for us. We have a steering committee that's composed of, it started out with just people who lived and worked and owned businesses and properties in our downtown. We've since expanded it to people who work in the downtown that aren't necessarily physically there, which has been a much better process. But what we do is we think about activities, we think about aesthetic and artistic improvements, we think about festivals, we also think about long-term policy objectives and how to make some of the properties that we want to develop a little bit more desirable to private developers. So it's a little bit of everything that's geared towards downtown activation and downtown development. It has a lot of different arms and legs to it.
Now, you've been working since you got here on the development of some of the downtown projects. Can you give us a little update on a couple of these projects, like the Wall Street, the Union Street project?
Yeah, absolutely. We have right now a pipeline of projects that are at least in the development permitting stage, meaning they've had conversations with our planning and development director, Gary Arasian, about maybe a variance or, submitting their plans to the city for approval. Within that pipeline, we have about $70 million worth of projects that are going to be completed within the next, say, 2 to 3 years, if not sooner. There are more projects beyond that, but they're a little bit further out and less certain. So what this means is that 4 buildings are going to be constructed in our downtown imminently. The one that you see already is the Wall Street apartments. Those are going to be under construction through the summer. I believe that they're going to have the one-way access along Wall Street through August or so, which, that obviously is not something that is pleasant to the city, but it is necessary for safety during that construction period. Alongside it, we are hoping to break ground on 54 Union Street, which will be an adaptive reuse project, taking an underused mill building within our downtown, converting it into a residential. That's going to be a market rate housing development project strongly geared towards the train and people who want a cheaper rent, but they still want to be connected to Fenway Park or the Opera or anything else that may be in Boston or Providence. That one's going to break ground hopefully in July. We'll have 37 Union Street, which is right across the street from there. That's a mixed income development project, also taking a former factory and converting it into residential. That one is expected to break ground late spring, early summer. And finally, the 29 South Main Street, the former Briggs Hotel building. Hopefully you'll see a demolition there sometime this summer. So those are the projects that are publicly aware, and we're really excited to have them going on in our downtown. For a city the size of Attleboro to have that many projects going on concurrently, and those are just the ones that we're able to talk about publicly at this stage. That's a huge, huge feat, and it's going to keep us busy for some time.
Yeah, the project, especially the one on South Main Street, that's the old Fishnet restaurant way before you were able to join us, and people are very curious. Do you know what's going to be going in there?
Yes, that's also going to be a market rate residential unit building. It's going to have parking underneath. It will not have a retail component, unfortunately. I was hoping that it would, just because there's no other retail between Renaissance North and the intersection there on that side of the street. But the developers couldn't fit it into their plans. So it's going to be 46 units of market rate housing. And it is going to have ADA accessible first floor units. That's a priority of the developers. They're local people. They have a strong commitment to making sure that individuals who need the additional adaptations have available units for them in downtown Attleboro.
That's awesome. And one other question that that was posed to me a little while ago. Can you give us an update on 135 County Street? Some of us know that as the old high school, the old Brennan School. I know during the wintertime that houses Christmases for kids. What's going on with that property?
Well, the city has put that out to bid a number of times. The building itself is unfortunately not suited well to adaptive reuse projects, which is when you take something that had one purpose and you try to find a new life for it. The main problem with that building is it has that large, beautiful atrium to it, but that atrium causes some structural limitations to what can be built there. You can't have natural lighting, for example, coming into any interior units that you may build. As a result, it's very, very, very expensive. I had several developers who were really eager to take a shot at that building, but ultimately the numbers couldn't work for them. Even if you take into consideration programs that are designed to help fill those gaps and make those projects doable, still ultimately we weren't able to find something that was able to preserve the building as is. Even when it came to just the facade restriction placed by city council, we had a project that came very, very close. Ultimately, just due to a number of other factors that didn't really have much to do with the proposal, but we weren't able to accept that one either. So that's an ongoing project for us. We're going to continue working on it. Personally, I think I may have to go to the municipal council and explain some of the challenges that the developers have faced in trying to preserve that facade, trying to turn that building into something else, just so that they're aware that the facade restriction may be limiting the end use.
Right. Okay. And, we got a few minutes left. One thing I'd like you to touch base on is you've also partnered with a group of students from the Northeast University. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing with them.
Yeah, thank you. The Northwestern Student Lab, this happens every so often. There are a lot of graduate programs where they assign students to a certain area and they give them a task. And when you can drill down and make that a very narrow task, you can usually get a lot of good ideas and good direction out of those student labs, because they don't know what they don't know yet professionally, which means that they can be very creative. And so our team out of Northeastern, I've been very impressed with them so far with their level of professionalism, their level of communication, far above what I've had in the past with other similar groups. What they're going to be doing is they're going to be looking at Balfour Riverwalk Park. That's the one that's across the river from the Riverbank Road and the brewery and Attleboro Jewelers. It's also behind the Attleboro Public Library. It's not well lit at night. Well, we did do some lighting improvements recently, but there aren't a lot of access points to say, hey, there's a park over here, come enjoy it. There are other perceptions of safety issues within that park that we'd like to address. And really what we'd like to see is that park being used on a regular basis by businesses, say yoga studios or CrossFit gyms, making use of that public space, especially during COVID, getting out there and encouraging people to use this park that's really the most convenient to our downtown businesses and residents.
Help. It's partnerships like that that is going to help the city grow, and have as you said, they don't know what they don't know,
Right.
and bring some ideas and some fresh ideas, and hopefully things are moving in the right direction. Now I know that part of the TDI program, you've also done a little partner thing with Mim Fawcett over at the museum, and she was talking about putting together a program for the flags and maybe a walking tour. Can you touch base on that for us?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really creative COVID-related adaptation project. The executive director of the art museum and several of the staff there decided that they wanted to share their permanent collection with Attleboro residents that don't necessarily feel comfortable being indoors and touring the physical space of the museum right now. Through grant funding and supported by TDI, they were able to create these street banners that hang from the light poles within our downtown, and each one references a certain piece from the permanent collection. They tried to match them up to local businesses, so if a local restaurant has a really great entree and they happen to have a painting that features one of the ingredients in that entree, they'll match them up and they'll pair them up. So it becomes really this interactive experience of the art of the art museum in downtown Attleboro, mingling with the businesses and the people and the places of downtown Attleboro. I've been very impressed with what I've seen so far. Those will be installed hopefully very soon, hopefully within the next week or two. I know there were some delays due to the snow, but it's going to be a great feature. And if you have a chance to come downtown and just take some time to enjoy those banners, I think that it's going to be a really cool concept.
Well, you've done a phenomenal job, and you're really moving Attleboro forward. And I know from the Chamber's perspective and some of our members, we're very impressed and very appreciative of some of the things that you've done, because we've not had an economic development director per se in the city for a long time. Gary did his best, but when you got to wear 6 hats, it's a little bit difficult, as you're finding out, because you do wear more than one hat.
I'm wearing only 3, thankfully.
Well, Catherine, thanks for joining me today. I won't keep you any longer.
Thank
Folks, if you have a chance, stop in, shoot her an email, show her how much appreciation that you have for all of these projects that are coming in downtown, because we certainly do. We're looking to, revitalize the downtown as it was many, many years ago. And I think you're going to see some really bright, refreshing things coming in not too distant future. So thank you all again for joining us on the United Regional Chambers update. We hope everybody stays safe. And I know I'm sick of shoveling. I don't know about you, but maybe this cold weather will go away for a little while and we can get back out and enjoy some sunshine. So thank you once again. Everybody, please be safe.